My name is Bruce Gilden. I was born in 1946 in Brooklyn. My father was I guess you'd say a racketeer type. My mother was, I'm not going to get into. I'm not your average person, and I don't think my photographs are your average photos. And I should say I've worked very hard. I've been taking photos since I'm 19 years old. Now I'm 78. I still haven't lost the passion for photography, which they say, you know, love lasts and passion burns out. I'm still the same passionate guy. I have to say I've adjusted my photographic style somewhat. You know, what I've lost in age, I've gained in experience. And it's been a lifetime of thinking and doing photography. Photography made me who I am and what I am. And aside from my family, my photography is my primary love. And at 78, I have no designs on stopping, but I can tell you once I can't do it anymore, I'm not going to be like the old boxer who comes out of retirement and gets the shit kicked out of him, you know? I think I've learned how to be Bruce Gilden. Like I said at one time, I couldn't outdo Cartier-Bresson, but I could be the best Bruce Gilden. And I live by that mantra. And also, the older I get, the closer I get. And my photographs are 60 years of experience, you know? Of course, the early ones, I didn't have the same experience, but I don't know, that's about it. I hope you enjoy the show. I enjoyed taking many of these pictures. You know, the important thing is it gave me something to do with my life. And I'm an ex-drug addict. Well, cocaine freak. I don't know if you consider that drug addiction. No needles. They weren't for me. And I think I'm super street smart. Even the guy just took my workshop that makes television shows, said you should have a show. Because I'm comfortable and I speak and I stand behind what I say. Okay. So anyway, I had the opportunity to take 4 or 5 pictures. Again, no flash. I'm pointing it out. No flash, you can see. This is the Gypsies. And that's when I wasn't using flash, and this is taken with really available light, not much. I really like that picture. I love it. Okay. But the bigger you see the print, then you see him a little more, and he annoys me a little bit, whereas the location of his head is into the location of the guy in front of him. Okay. All right. This is fake mustache. It looked like if you went like this, you'd have a robotic machine underneath. Fake mustache, fake hair, sunglasses, probably fake hair. I guess they're not married, but, well, if they are, I don't know what they're hiding, or who they're hiding from. But I like that picture. I didn't put it in my first book either on New York, and it could have been. I don't know why. This is the picture where the guy's on the ground, okay? And he just got down, started doing this. What I like is the body language of this guy. That, fuck you, I don't care if you die in front of me. Yeah, it's a Greek parade. So they do everything backwards. There's another iconic picture. Lefty Louie, I call him. Did you guys ever have a toy called Slinky? It was a metal toy that would go like this. It was a wire.
Yes.
He looked like a Slinky. I saw him from a block away. I just stood there and waited till he came.
I look at him.
It's like almost he's bowling. Look at this. Oh, he's so good. Oh, but look at this. I mean, the guy that's exceptional. Every museum in New York should own that. I mean, do you think they buy it? No. Okay.
Best fashions.
What?
Fashions.
Oh, but he's everything. Look at him. Look at the style he has. This is 1984, I told you, or something. And that's 1950s. He's still the same. Look at that. Look at that. Hanky in the pocket. The hand in the pocket here. He's probably making sure no one robs his money. And the cigarette. Look at him. Oh, he's a dandy. Look at these shoes, the walk. Okay. This is Broadway. This I call Japanese racketeers, even if they're not racketeers. It's taken in New York City. What's interesting about this picture, at that time, I used to hang out a lot with Leon Levinstein when he was around, Well, we didn't stay together, but, we'd stop, talk. And if I remember correctly, at this time, they were chasing all the Frankfurter men because they didn't want them selling their Frankfurters on the street. So this guy was like running away from the cops. The dog is going this way. And what's interesting, one is going this way, one is going that way. It's perfect. And yet all attention is in the center. So I like, most of these I like, so I have nothing. I don't like all my pictures. Okay. This one, I'll tell you, her mouth was open. She must have had a stroke. So I call it the daughter. They're all untitled again, but to me, the daughter is trying to get rid of her mother. She's throwing her over the cliff. She's been talking to her whole life, she's tired, she had it. It's good. This was taken, it was in January, I remember, because it was freezing out. That's why I have arthritis in my hands, because I never wore gloves. And I always was holding a metal camera and a flash in my hand at all times. Stupidly, I should have wore gloves, but, as smart as I am, as dumb as I am. So all of a sudden, I was on 57th Street. I was on the other side of the street. I ran across the street. I call it the Giant, because this guy came out of the department store with her. He's like 3 times her size, and he's guiding her. So you see, it does help when you get close. Emphasizes certain things. Okay. This, Mrs. America, because of the flag. I probably didn't know the flag was. It's funny because I used to see this woman all the time, and I have to say, the flash makes her prettier. She's not ugly, she's not beautiful, but makes her more attractive, and also gives her a little demonic quality, a soft, like a kind witch, quality. I never said that before. Oh, don't. I believe it though. Okay. This I call it like the blues or jazz musician coming home at 5 a.m. He just can't wait to get home. But you see, I make up my own little stories. This was taken the day after the week after September 11th. And I was in Europe, in England, printing a book, so I missed all of that. And I was really pissed off. Not because I was pissed off that it happened, but I would have loved to have been there because New York is my home. And my wife called me. She said, "Did you hear what happened?" I said, "No." And I said, "Oh, terrorists." She said, because there were 2 planes. And I said to her from England, she said, "We're going to leave." We lived only about 10 blocks from where this is, off Canal Street on Mercer Street. And I said, "Don't go anywhere, because just stay where you are." And I came back a week later, And Newsweek hired me to go to Wall Street the day it opened, and this guy was on Wall Street. And he's dressed beautifully, but I had a feeling he's a little bit off. And it does show the concern, I don't like things that are too literal, In other words, this will say more about that day than all the literal pictures that people take. Okay. Now, we went to Haiti. Okay. Haiti, I first went in 1984. Why did I go to Haiti? I don't know. No. I went to Haiti because people had photographed there historically and some image, nothing good images, but nothing spectacular, like Japan, where I saw really good work. I wanted to go there. I didn't feel that way about Haiti. But I felt it was only 3.5-hour direct flight from New York. It's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. People could photograph there, where in Jamaica, if you photograph without asking, you might not come home, you know what I mean? So it was acceptable here. And this was during the Mardi Gras, and I had done my homework. I knew I was at the Mardi Gras the year before. And so I looked through all my contacts, and I said, what do I want to do? So I want to go on this street, not because of that, because a lot of people stand there and watch the parade. So I went to that street, and everyone watched the parade, but the best picture I got was this, and because of this triangle of light, and after the earthquake they had in 2010, whenever the hell it was, the building is no longer. So I was so lucky that, I don't think I could do a better picture in the Caribbean. It just sings of the Caribbean. This Of course, I made friends with the guys who run the cemetery. One died later of cocaine abuse. I was wondering, I was a cocaine addict at one time. I almost died myself. But the thing is, I was wondering, the guy was always fucking sweating. He was always sweating, and then I would come back, and a couple of years later, and he's dead from abuse. So I was allowed in the cemetery. I didn't have to ask them, but it was comfortable. They were there. They were running, not really. They just worked there, okay? So they have a lot of people. I'm trying to think if it was the Catholics or the Protestants, but one of them, they worked themselves up to such a feverish pitch, they start screaming and then they faint. So that's what she's doing. She's screaming, and then the guy's holding her like he's playing a guitar. And it's beautiful, and here it is. I mean, what can I say? I like my pictures in Haiti. I think they're really the best of anybody that's ever worked there. Well, I don't say that out of ego, I say that out of quality, okay? So there have been other people, that have worked well. Haiti should be a dream, but it's a nightmare for most people. This is at a voodoo festival. This is the haircut. See, but I bring to things different angles, different, relationships. People don't do that, Aperture did a book on Haiti, and I walked in, the lady didn't know me, and she said, I told her if I'm not featured, I said, I'm not in it. She looked at me like, you're fucking crazy. Then she looked at the images, so she had to shut up, okay. But all right, then this is at the cemetery, but you see the lights of the soccer stadium. This is the prisoner, I call it, even though it's at the soccer stadium. It's not a prisoner, but it looks like, the bars behind the bars. One of my favorite pictures. Now we go to Japan. Why did I go to Japan? I went to Japan because in the early 70s, I don't want to quote the year, they had a show at Museum of Modern Art called New Japanese Photography. Even though I had been familiar with almost all the photographers and almost all the pictures, when I saw the show, it blew me away. They'd been influenced by some of them, by William Klein, Ed van der Elsken, and they took their influences and used them and made them their own. So the only problem is when I got there in 1994, Tokyo wasn't the same as it was in 1970. It was a little bit of that's what I said, as smart as I am, as dumb as I am, okay. So I got a Villa de Medici grant from the French government. Then I got a Japan Foundation grant, and I spent like almost a year, and I did 2 books on Japan, and these are the pictures, which I'm satisfied with, okay? So what I like about the first picture here is the guy's reaching in his pocket probably for a cigarette, but it looks like he's gonna draw a gun and shoot me. This is the train, it gets very crowded. This reminds me of Francis Bacon, the painter. This is a famous ex-Yakuza, George Abbé. And I was able, because my friend, a French guy, a girl or somebody knew someone, introduced me to this writer who introduced me to Abbé. That was the reason, that they contacted all these people to get to Abbé. He had written a book about what it was like to be a Yakuza, and they did a movie on him. And he's famous. When you walk in the street with him, everybody goes, Abbé Georgia, they love him, And he told me a story. I went to his house, and his wife said, why don't you know Robert Mitchum, the actor, American actor?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Robert Mitchum was an ex-boxer. So he met Robert Mitchum, and Robert Mitchum knocked him out, belted him. So his wife said, why don't you re-meet him? He says, I don't want to get knocked out again. So, Robert Mitchum is tougher than him. And he came from, I think, a rich family, which is not the case. And most of the Yakuza don't come from rich family, but they sent him supposedly, I think, to boarding school in England to try and get this Yakuza idea out of his head, but it didn't work. These are 2 Yakuzas taken in a coffee shop. That's my favorite picture of Japan, my iconic photo. He's about 5'5", not tall, and 5'5" wide. And the first time I saw him, he's an ex-boxer. First time I saw him, he was wearing a bright canary yellow suit. And this one, his wife is a big model, and he invited me to his house, and stupidly I didn't go because I was more interested in going out to photograph day by day. Stupidly, you know, because then I could have gotten into other people's houses, you know, not using him because I'm interested, but I was dumb. He invited me to his house. I would have been able to meet all of these guys, and you know, now my brain power has changed. If it was 10 years later, I would have done it. At that time, I was so involved in missing a day, you know, even though if I had 40 days there. I mean, I'm crazy, okay? This was a guy who was in between the Yakuza and Bozo Zoko. That's the motorcycle kids. So to me, what I like about this is it looks like the smoke is coming out of his head. It's like he's got a volcano. That's why he's wearing that scarf on his head, okay? And I wanted to photograph these kids forever. So the lady who I had helping me, who was, you know, we picked her. She had gone to photo school in USA. She calls me in Osaka one night, and she says, I told them you're in town, and I was told they can't see you. So she said she was going to go over his head. So that was the end of it. A woman can't do that. You're going to go over his head. I said, why did you do that? That was ridiculous. Okay, but that was the end of it. Because I wanted to photograph these guys until I die or they die, to see the trajectory of how they go. Because a lot of them become Yakuza. And at this age, for the motorcycle kids, you can see who's going to be the leader, who's the alcoholic, everything is totally built in already. You see it. This is my wife's favorite picture, the transvestite. That's candid, you know. Look at the size of his hands. Real woman. I mean, man, whatever, okay. Then we were in England. I did a commission in England for Archive of Modern Conflict. Oh, that's this one and that one. This one was done for a magazine. They sent me to King's Cross, which at the time was a horror show because it was being reconstructed. So the tons of people around there were junkies. So they made sure I had someone come with me who is, you know, a force. They were so afraid of this guy. He looked like, you know, well, I had two guys. One guy, when he couldn't come, he was a guy that grew up in the area. He was like a mod, you know, nice suits and everything, crazy guy, you know, like neatly dressed, a knife person, you know, like not a little bit out there. And then he had me, I got his brother, who was an ex-soldier who looked like such a cop, you know, and he's big. No one would come near me, so I had to go out by myself. And I would talk to these guys. This is interesting because, look at that. Not many people do a picture like that, with the eye. I mean, that's a lucky crop. I probably didn't imagine getting that crop, but it happened in a building in the center. I loved his eyebrows. And I think if I remember correctly, I asked him, could you walk for me? You know, sometimes if I can do it, I do that, okay. Later on in my life, I got smarter, okay. I had a commission to photograph in Ireland by the photo gallery in Dublin. So we decided to do people at the racetracks, and here it is. I went to a couple dog races, but these are all pictures from the horse racing. This one was in Listowel, I think. And I love, you know, these are farmers, most of them. This guy, look at the size of his hands. They all wear a label on their jacket, which is crazy. So I never knew what Sergio Rossi was, right? Who he was. And then one day I'm teaching a workshop in Italy, and the guy tells me my wife works for Sergio Rossi. So, you know, it is a brand, you know, it's not like, and it's not the lowest brand, okay? I thought, because look, he didn't realize you have to take the label off. So anyway, I like that picture. This guy, I just like another farm. Look at his nails dirty and everything, and it's okay. Now this, two different things. This was taken during the Bastille Day parade, and that was with film. The other two are digital, so you can see the difference in how they look. But this one, what's interesting is the mother-son. Obviously, the son probably is not 100%, you can see, and the mother's looking at me ferociously, like, you know, look, you're taking a picture of my son, who, you know, she never left him her whole life, and he can't leave her. So, you know, and then you have, of course, Yves Saint Laurent, and look at the bag she's wearing. I mean, it's all about contrast, you know, differences or similarities. And there it is. It's my girl. That's my girl. She's dead. And we went out in the morning, and right away I went to the barn because it was cows, and I'm watching from a distance. It's not very crowded, and I see this kid get disqualified. You know, I don't know, he didn't even make it. You know, they disqualified him for whatever reason. I have no idea. So I went over. I see his mother livid. His mother is livid, and she's so mad. And the kid is upset, crying, that she punches the cow. And I went over, that was my in. I said, you know, I live in New York. I said, you'd fit right in New York with, you know, with what you just did. I said, would you mind if I take a picture of your son? Excuse me. She said, no. So I asked, I went to take his picture. He was crying. And I told him, you know, what's happening to you is terrible, but this probably later in life you'll look back on it as a learning experience, because, you know, there are going to be things that are probably going to happen to you that are more important, okay? And I was lucky enough by the third, because I don't have much time to take pictures, I was lucky enough by the third or fourth picture to get this one. It's a beautiful picture. Okay. What I saw, this was Dwayne, and he's autistic. His father was incredible because this kid never stopped shaking. So he held him steady as he could for the picture. And Dwayne, I love the idea that he has a Drake University hat on. And he has, the father was so kind and nice to him and loving. It was beautiful to see. And he loved semis. You know, he loved trucks. So he kept on saying, I want to see the semis, I want to see the semis. And I just remember it was a very interesting experience because the kid is really very autistic. I mean, and never stopped shaking, rocking up and back. And the father was so patient with him. It was beautiful to see. This is Amber. I asked her when I first met her in Kensington, Pennsylvania. I said to her, who's Belle? When she told me her name, that's her daughter, who obviously she doesn't see because she's a serious drug addict, okay? And she was so good, she was so feisty. When we were taking her picture, you could see the fierceness in her look, in her face. A guy came over and she told him, get the fuck out of here, you know, he's taking my picture, you know, you're not involved in this. But the sad thing is, when I went back a few months later, people hadn't seen her for 2 or 3 weeks. So I wonder if she OD'd or if she got kidnapped. You know, a lot of terrible things happen to these people, you know. And she's, in a way, memorable to me. But look at the tattoo she has. Dollar signs under the eyes, dollar signs on her forehead. Belle, where is her brain at? I mean, and I'll always remember Amber. I mean, it's a great, I think, a wonderful portrait, but also interesting person and full of life, but totally misguided, you know. This in Mexico City, and we took a picture of her. That's Frida. And I didn't like the picture because I didn't like the background. So we found her a couple hours later and we moved her to a cleaner background. And we found out a little of her story because we also took her to a motel. Well, I wouldn't call it a motel. A place where the girls used to have relations with customers. It was really a pretty disgusting place. and we couldn't close the door because she had been gang raped by the drug cartel, and she was frightened to close the door and be trapped with me and my assistant and translator in the room. We all were male. I had done a story on betting for the New York Times Magazine, so I was able to get access to the casinos, a couple of weeks later, because I told her I want to do a project on women dealers, women who work at the casinos. So I said to Donna, because she's had a lot of face work done, she's very thin, very attractive. So I said to her, you must have had at least 3 husbands. And I think she said to me, no, I had 7, or at least 5. So I read her right, but she was great, very, very beautiful, very nice figure, very attractive, tons of face work. And I just went out there now and they wouldn't give me permission to photograph, but I met a friend of ours who I photographed who said she's retired now. She's not working at the casino any longer. Okay. Well, like I said, I started this project with people being left behind. I think for most people they're invisible. And a lot of people don't want to look at these people too closely, if at all, because they think if they don't look at them, these people are going to go away. And to me, these people are beautiful, the people I photographed. They may not all be pretty. And, some people have this idea that you can't photograph someone who they think you shouldn't photograph, okay? Someone who's possibly maybe dying, or this person here, or this guy with the eye patch on. All of these people have given me their consent. And I would say that you have more difficulty with people saying yes to be photographed with beautiful people. Because, I have a pimple. I mean, I did a shoot with Blondie for Cutler and Gross. And the pictures, when I work for a client, I'm there to make them, she was an attractive woman, and even at her age, she's like my age, and I'm there to make them look good. I know what they want. I mean, they don't want, someone with drool coming out of their mouth or something, or smudged makeup. And all the pictures were good, and yet she had a problem. I showed them all to her, and yet at the end of the day, I guess I believe because of vanity, she didn't let us use 2 of the pictures. And the pictures are fine. So, viewers don't understand that, whereas, like I said, all these people gave me their consent. So it's not like I'm stealing their image. And I photograph what I find beautiful. I've always been an outlier. When I was 5 years old, I liked the craziest wrestler, Man Mountain Dean or the French Angel or something. I wanted to be a boxer. I wanted to play the drums. I wanted a monkey. I'm not your average person. So I photograph what interests me. And, some people, they get excited because, you can't do this. I ask, why can't you do this? I mean, to me, these people are beautiful. To others, someone else, Kim Kardashian might be beautiful, Everybody has their own right to choose who they find beautiful. This is Texas, and the first time I saw Texas in Overtown, Miami, which is where all the junkies, not all, but tons of junkies were. And I heard before I went there, years before, I always get to places too late, when they're emptying, when they're less crowded than they were at one time with the populations that I'm interested in. But I saw her sitting under the highway, under the overhang, and she was sitting on the ground with a makeup kit and just looking at herself and totally fucked up. So when she came out around the corner, I stopped her. I said, can I take a picture of you? She said, yes. She explained to me, her name is Texas, and I told her, since I almost died on cocaine overdose myself, I said to her, I don't proselytize, but I told her, I said, you're playing a losing game. You should stop. She said, I'll stop when I'm ready. I said, okay. The next day, At one time, you can see how beautiful she was. Just the day after. I mean, she's beautiful. To me, this is like a fashion picture. But look at the road map. Look at the car accident or whatever happened, you know, or went through the glass or something. The nails bitten. Yet, look, she has all this beautiful dress on, beautiful color. I mean, it's a beautiful picture. I mean, I love this picture. And I asked her, could she walk by this wall because the colors were beautiful. And it's really a great picture of a real person who is a drug addict. You can almost feel how beautiful she was if she didn't take her drugs. But the saddest part of all is she OD'd. So the next year I went back, she was dead. That's Simon. This is in Bogota. When I went to Bogota, I was fascinated by the walls. They have all these colored walls, so I'd ask people who would walk by, would you pose for me by the wall? So Simon, I told him, look at me, you know, that was the gist of the project, to look at me and give me an intense look. He gave me this great look, and he's a mortician. So I said, through the translator, could I go with you maybe? And he said, no, it's impossible. But every time my wife, Sophie, sees this picture, she gives him a kiss because she loves it. It's a beautiful picture. And see, for me, good photography has to have a strong emotional content. It has to be formed well. I mean, it's not like if you have the two dwarfs walking and you took a picture of two dwarfs, oh, they're interesting, but does it fit well in the frame? And I always thought the portraits are so much easier to do because you're not dealing with crowded backgrounds, but like my ex-assistant said, they should see where you start and where you finish. You still have to have the eye. And the only reason I picked this is two things I want to say. We took our picture, I didn't like it, so we drove around, and my assistant said, come on, you got the picture. I said, no, because I'm persistent, okay? I know what I want, and I know if I've achieved it. And most times you haven't achieved it, but you know, that's it. There's no more for you or the person to give. But I went back, I got her, she's totally crazy. And, but it's one of my favorite portraits. She was walking under the overpass in the main road in Kensington, just walking around like totally out of her mind. And then when I saw her a couple of years later, a year later, she's even more out of her mind. And I made this beautiful picture of her. Look at that. I mean, she was telling me about having sex with a guy, and they finished or something, and she told me she was like the Energizer Bunny. What do you think? He said, what does he think? I'm the Energizer Bunny, you know, that keeps on, you know, you're going to be here for 46 years. These women have I'm not laughing at it. It's really not funny, but they have some lives. They get kidnapped, they get locked in rooms. I mean, and I believe all the stories because I'm sure they're true. We're driving along, my sister and I, in the Bottoms neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. And I see this lady sitting on her porch. She looked like she's from Appalachia. And it's funny, in the Bottoms area, there are certain people that must have come from Appalachia. It's not that far, Kentucky, you know, to Ohio. Though Appalachia is not only Kentucky, but it's one of the Appalachian states. And I went, it was a Sunday morning. I got out of the car, I went up on her porch, and I introduced myself. Fortunately for me, she wasn't sure if she wanted to be photographed, but the nurse who came out from her apartment or a little house or whatever said, Bonnie, why don't you let him take your picture? So she said yes, and then all of a sudden, after I'm there taking a picture, the kitten comes out. I said, okay, let's go out in the street. And look at her eyes, look at it's beautiful. I mean, I was lucky. But you know, you make your own luck. The more you work, the more chances you have to get lucky, but also you have to be good enough to be able to take advantage of your luck. You have to see, you know, how the cat looks and the kitten's looking. And when I saw that, I said, holy shit, and then I got it. So it's, Bonnie, thank you.